August 2019, New Rochelle, New York. Tennis player Art Donaldson is competing as a wild card in a challenger event. He faces Patrick Zweig in the final set. Watching intently from the crowd is Art's wife and coach, Tashi Duncan. 2 weeks prior, Tashi and Art were seen preparing for the event, despite Art's ongoing ailment. They live with their daughter Lily. Art is striving for a comeback after a series of recent setbacks. Tashi pushes Art hard for a win, seemingly more dedicated to the sport than to their relationship. When Art tells Tashi that he loves her, she responds simply, "I know." Days earlier, Patrick is shown unable to reserve a room at a motel because his credit card is denied, and he fails to persuade the clerk to accept one of his rackets as payment. Patrick ends up sleeping in his car in the court's parking lot. When he goes to sign up for the event, the sign-in lady gives him half a sandwich out of sympathy. Patrick is then informed that he will be competing against Art, which causes him to express his disappointment. 2006, 13 years ago, Art and Patrick were childhood best friends and fellow tennis players, known as Fire and Ice. They won the junior doubles title at the US Open before seeing Tashi, a promising young player, compete against Anna Mueller. Tashi wins, exclaiming, "Come on!" as Mueller smashes her racket in despair. Both Art and Patrick are instantly captivated by her. At night, the two approach Tashi at a party and introduce themselves before Patrick asks her to his hotel room. Tashi eventually shows up and interacts with the two guys, finding that they have been friends since they were 12 and train at the same tennis academy. Patrick goes into more personal detail, telling Tashi how he taught Art how to masturbate. Tashi then invites the lads onto the bed, where they alternate kissing her before transitioning into a three-way makeout session. Tashi then gently pulls away, amused as Art and Patrick continue to kiss. Tashi tells them before departing that she would offer her number to whoever wins their battle the next day, since Art and Patrick will be facing off. Patrick wins the match and gets Tashi's number. Later, when Patrick and Art play one-on-one, Patrick uses Art's tell, holding the ball to the racket's neck before serving, to confirm that he and Tashi had sex, as Art had asked. Earlier in the week before the current match, Patrick is shown searching for potential homes by seeking matches on Tinder. He meets a woman named Helen who is staying at a hotel and arranges a date with her. While at the hotel, Patrick spots Tashi and approaches her. Tashi is not pleased to see him and warns him to stay away from her, Art, and Lily. Patrick then returns to Helen and easily seduces her while securing his room. In 2007, Tashi and Patrick have established a stable relationship, and she and Art now play for Stanford University. After a practice session, Tashi has lunch with Art, who challenges her about her relationship with Patrick, claiming that Patrick doesn't truly love her. Tashi responds that she doesn't care whether anyone loves her and firmly tells Art off. Patrick approaches Art in the cafeteria to hang out and taunt him, aware of Art's envy regarding Patrick's friendship with Tashi. Later, Patrick heads to Tashi's room intending to be intimate, but he becomes turned off when she speaks to him as if she is coaching him, making him feel as if she is offering unwanted advice. This leads to a heated dispute between them, and Patrick storms out. During another match, with only Art observing, Tashi makes a terrible play and seriously injures her left knee, forcing her out of the game. As she begins her healing process with Art by her side, Patrick arrives but is asked to leave by both Tashi and Art. Art attempts to train with Tashi while she recovers, but she refuses to take it easy simply because she's injured. Unfortunately, she can't push too hard without risking falling over, leading Tashi to realize that her tennis career has come to an end. 2010, Art and Tashi reconnect and dine before falling in love. He informs her that he and Patrick haven't spoken since her injury. She eventually becomes his coach. In the 2019 match, Patrick starts strong in the first set, but begins to falter as the game progresses, showing signs of losing his composure. In a flashback from days before the contest, Patrick reaches out to Tashi and asks her to be his coach in an attempt to regain his winning form. Instead of agreeing, Tashi smacks him and angrily confronts him for how much he has declined while trying to portray himself as a struggling athlete. Patrick retorts that Tashi doesn't truly love Art and is aware that he's ready to leave the sport. He suggests that if Art stops playing tennis, Tashi will lose her connection to the sport, which he believes is the only reason she has stayed with Art. The day before the match, Patrick approaches Art in the sauna, hoping to reconcile, but also intending to intimidate him by getting completely naked. Patrick still believes their feud is connected to Tashi, which triggers memories of Art competing in the 2011 Atlanta Open and witnessing Tashi and Patrick engage in a one-night encounter. However, Art surprises Patrick by informing him that his glory days are over. He asserts that while Patrick may have had his time in the spotlight, Art is now rising through the ranks of the sport and will be remembered more favorably than Patrick. Later that night, Art confides in Tashi his intention to retire after the tournament, regardless of the outcome, knowing it would upset her since she still finds joy in tennis through him. In response, Tashi informs Art that if he loses to Patrick, she will leave him. At midnight, Tashi sneaks out and meets Patrick in the midst of a strong wind. She urges Patrick to intentionally lose the match. Despite initial resistance and bickering during their drive, Patrick reluctantly agrees. As Tashi begins to walk away, Patrick tries to stop her, only to be met with her spitting in his face. However, this intense moment quickly turns into a passionate embrace, leading to them having sex in his car. Returning to the match, Patrick initially attempts to throw it by delaying and cursing aloud. However, after a while, he decides to resume playing, using Art's tell to subtly signify that he and Tashi had been intimate. This revelation causes Art to also curse aloud, resulting in a penalty. Despite this, Art allows Patrick to catch up until they are tied. As they approach the tiebreak, Art and Patrick reignite their enthusiasm for the sport and give it their all. They engage in rapid, frantic exchanges, both near the net. In a moment of intense action, Art rushes for the ball, seemingly intending to strike Patrick, but he instead falls over the net and is caught by Patrick. Amidst the crowd's cheers, Art and Patrick reunite as close friends. Tashi joins the jubilant crowd and shouts, "Come on!" in encouragement, celebrating the rekindled bond between Art and Patrick.